Hey, party people. I'm having problems again. Okay, so hopefully this will be my last video of the semester. So exciting. Making this video because I want to hear over and over and over. Calm down, technology. It just was like skipping. Okay, so this is my very, very brief outline of torts, and it is just to like help me remember the things to remember because I feel like I understand everything on here and then some, but these are the things like I need to keep in my brain. So maybe it will help you too. If not, it's just for me anyway. Okay, so I'll skip a little. I'll do it in the order we did the class. All right, so the intentional torts are battery, assault, false imprisonment, trespass to land, trespass to chattels, IIED, and conversion. And then you can throw in some transferred intent. The affirmative defenses, if you remember COPS, RN. So, and that is consent, defense of others, defense of property, self-defense, recovery of property, and necessity, both public and private. Those were intentional. And then we went to negligence, and negligence is duty, breach, cause and fact, proximate cause. And then you go to damages, but I didn't write that. And then we have affirmative defenses. So here we have duty is a question of law. You're gonna have to deal with it if there's no reasonably foreseeable plaintiff and if there's a limited duty situation. And some limited duty situations are NID, where there's a physical manifestation of the emotional distress. You're looking for someone being in a zone of danger or someone having a special relationship while they're there. Then you have failure to act exceptions, special relationships, wrongful death, wrongful birth, which is about the choice of conception and it's the parent's tort claim. And it can get general and special damages. And then you're looking for wrongful life, which is the child's claim, and also special damages, and then special limited duty to the unborn. Then we have differing duty to invitees, licensees, and trespassers. Invitees, you have a duty. Licensees, you have a duty to warn if something is dangerous. And for trespassers, some say you have no duty, some say you only have a duty if it's active, and some say you have no duty. You have duty to everyone except for flagrant trespassers. California says you have a duty to everyone on your property, and other jurisdictions lump the invitee and the licensee into the duty, but they treat flagrant trespassers differently. Then once you've handled duty, you go to breach. Most of the time we do duty breach because they're together. And then we have gravity and foreseeability of harm versus the burden of prevention. And you're going to balance that. And you're going to keep in mind things like custom, reasonable under the circumstances, physical limitations and exceptionalities, kids, reasonable age, intelligence, and experience of those kids or kid. Insanity, no, that doesn't factor in. Maybe if it's sudden onset, and it's okay if it's comparative, but otherwise, no insanity is not a thing here. Professional exceptions, and then informed consent. We also have negligence per se. That means that a statute has been broken, per se statute. And that means there's 3 issues here. So the plaintiff needed to be a member of the class the statute was meant to protect. The harm needs to be something in the realm of what it was meant to prevent. And the violation had to be proximately caused by the breaking of the statute. And then we have res ipsa loquitur, and that's an event that it has happened. The the facts speak for themselves. It's under the exclusive custody and control of the plaintiff, and it was not due to the plaintiff's conduct. No, it was under the exclusive control of the defendant, and it was not the plaintiff's conduct that caused it. Got it. All right, then we have cause in fact, and some extras that we're going to look for in cause in fact are loss of chance, traditional substantial factor test, that's the 2 fires, the alternative causation, that is 2 people shoot a gun, but only one's bullet hit the person, but you can't tell which one. Then you have enterprise liability, where you have market share of drugs and only one gave it, but you're looking for the market share. Joint severable liability, and the substantial factor, which is a California test. Then we have proximate cause, and our acronym for this is HARDER without an E. And that's hindsight, Andrew's rough sense of justice, reasonable foreseeable, direct causation, and results within the risk. You're always going to start with reasonable foreseeable. You're going to look at superseding intervening causes. If there's a superseding intervening cause that is not reasonably foreseeable, then it's going to supersede. If it is not a superseding intervening cause, that means it is reasonably foreseeable. The not has to be on one side or the other. So it either needs to be not a superseding intervening cause, or it needs to be not reasonably foreseeable, but it can't be not, or open, not happening. Criminality is not reasonably foreseeable unless it is, like you're in a really bad part of town. Some things that are not superseding intervening cause are second accidents, escape, and rescues. Suicide in the majority is a superseding intervening cause. In the minority, it might not be superseding if it's an irresistible impulse, might. And maybe if it's a sudden frenzy in others. But those are the only 2 where it will not be a superseding intervening cause. Otherwise, suicide is a superseding intervening cause. Then we have this thin skull plaintiff rule, the New Jersey 1 structure rule, and then for California, we have joint severable liability for special damages, but not for generals. So only for loss of wages, concrete things. Then we have affirmative defenses. 4 states do contributory negligence. It is a nuclear defense. Then we have comparative negligence. And here we have pure, which is what California is, although it does not include offset. Then we have greater than, and we have not less than. Greater than loses in 50-50, not less than wins in 50-50. We have assumption of risk, express and implied. Some are joining comparative and implied assumption of risk. And then we have the last, clear chance. Then we have no we don't. So that's negligence. Then we have products liability. No, we don't. Then we have strict liability. And our strict liability things are animals, which include wild, domestic, and also the dangerous and vicious propensity rule, and the animal trespass. Then we have unnatural conditions on land. Radar should be up if someone's using the land unnaturally. And you have abnormally dangerous activities. Then you're going to look at intervening natural events. If they're unforeseeable, then the person will not be liable. If they are foreseeable, then the person will be liable. Then we also have comparative negligence and assumption of risk. Under that. Okay, now we have products liability. Products liability includes 2 causes of actions, negligence and strict liability. First is negligence. You're going to do duty, breach. Under breach, you're going to look for manufacturing design or warning defects. Under manufacturing, you're looking at was it reasonably foreseeable. Under design, you're going to do a risk utility with a reasonable alternative design. And under warning, you're going to do a risk utility with a reasonable alternative warning. Then you're going to do cause and fact. Then you're going to do proximate cause. Once again, it's harder. Hindsight, Andrew's rough sense of justice, reasonably foreseeable, direct causation, or results within the risk. And then you're going to look at the damage. Affirmative defenses for negligence in products liability are comparative negligence. Very few have contributory. We have misuse if it is not reasonably foreseeable or intentional. If it's intentional, it won't be an affirmative if it was intentional, okay. Misuse equals not reasonably foreseeable or intentional. Then we have assumption of risk, and we have preemption. And in assumption of risk, it can be express or implied. Then we have strict liability. In strict liability, we are looking for a seller of this item. Then we have a defect, which could be manufacturing, design, or warning. You have a few different things to do. Under manufacturing, you're going to compare the plan to what was manufactured. And that's it. For a design, you're going to do a RICA, depending on what jurisdiction you're in. So RICA stands for, the majority jurisdiction is risk utility. You're going to do an RURAD. I'm tired. In a minority jurisdiction, there's imputed knowledge. In another minority, there's consumer expectation. And then in California, we have alternative liability, which you get to do an RURAD and a consumer expectation, and you only have to win one of those. And then we have warning defect, and then a warning defect is a RIC, and you're going to do an RURA. Then another, in the majority, some jurisdictions do imputed knowledge. And then you have consumer expectations. So you're only going to do what the jurisdiction asks you to do, but if you don't know, you're going to do all of them. So that's seller, defect. Then you're going to make sure it is substantially unchanged. That's your third element. Fourth is cause and fact. Fifth is proximate cause. Look at your harder again. Hindsight, Andrew's rough sense of justice, reasonably foreseeable, direction, and the result within the risk. The sixth element is that it has not been misused. Changes a little from the affirmative defense. Here, there's a slight majority who says it's a prima facie element. And then 7, you're looking for damages. Your affirmative defenses for strict liability and products liability is comparative negligence, implied assumption of risk, misuse. In the strong minority that doesn't put it in the prima facie, and then you have preemption by Congress. And last but not least, we have defamation. So, defamation is a defamatory communication that tends to damage the reputation of the plaintiff, and this is looked at within their respectable and important community. In defamation, under the element, which is a defamatory communication that tends to damage the reputation of the plaintiff, you're going to look for inducement, and that means what was said is not defaming on its face, so the plaintiff must show why. And with that, you're going to say innuendo as well, because that's the implication of inducement was inflammatory. And then you have second element is false statement of fact, and that's the burden is on the plaintiff, and Miklovich says opinion can be defamation. The third prima facie element is of and concerning the plaintiff. You've got to show that it is the plaintiff who's being talked about. The fourth is publication. Lots of rules on this. You should know them. I'm not going to go through them because I feel like I do. And then you have basis of liability. So you have strict liability, and that's if in reasonable and in good faith, they said something with reason. it was reasonable to believe, it was in good faith, but it was false, doesn't matter, liability for saying it. Then we have negligence. If it was unreasonable, if there was an unreasonable belief that it was true, that's negligence. If it was reasonable to believe that it was true, then it will not be negligence. And then we have the actual malice standard, and this came from Hardy Hanks. And actual malice means acted with knowing falsity or reckless disregard for truth, or intent to avoid truth, or with serious doubts of its truth. Hardy Hanks made actual malice a question of law, and Hardy Hanks says to decide this, you're going to look at the person. And then Bradstreet says you're going to look at the speech. So actually look at both. If you don't know what it is, look at the chart on my previous video. Then for defamation, then we go to damages. So there is presumptive and punitive damages. If this is about public speech, it must be an actual malice standard to get presumptive and punitive damages. But if it's private speech, then the state gets to decide. Then we have slander, and slander is more speech, but not all the time. Check a last video if you need more info. Then we have, for damages, there must be externally imposed specials, then you can also get generals. And then for libel, you can get specials and generals. But the caveat is slander per se allows. Slander per se is 4 things. So if you have one of these 4 things, you can get slander per se. And the defamation was about criminal moral turpitude, a loathsome disease, conduct incompatible with one's profession, and serious sexual misconduct. If you have slander per se, then you can also get specials and generals. Otherwise, slander needs externally imposed specials. And that's it. That's my rough outline. Happy studying.